Good morning, students. There are certain things or points which a CA final student should keep in mind when he is writing CA Final AFM paper. If you do not pay attention to these things and if you make some mistakes, then it can cost you 5 to 10% of your marks, students. So here we will discuss all such important points. And for the sake of systematic discussion, we have classified these points into 5 categories. You just watch on the screen. Correct method of writing CA Final AFM paper. These points here are categorized into marking related points. So here students, we will study how the ICI does marking, how the ICI does the assessment in CA Final AFM paper. Then what is the importance of instructions given in the problem relating to how to solve? If suppose some question contains some instructions on how to solve, then what is the significance of such instructions? Thereafter, there are some method related points. This is related to method which you should follow in solving practical questions and writing theory questions. Then students, there are some presentation related points. Here we will discuss some doubts of students. Say for example, are there any marks for systematic presentation? Means if you are drawing tables and lines is compulsory or not, and so on. And then certain rules of rounding off, students. Certain rules of rounding off which you should keep in mind. Then at the end, we will also discuss the errors which the ICI's examiners can make in examining your answer sheets. We will also have a thought on that. Okay, so this is the brief overview of what we are going to discuss. Now let's start our discussion, students. The first is the marking related points. So here two things are there. First, that in any practical question or MCQ question, your marking will be stepwise. There are marks for correct answers at every step, at each step. The correct answer means it should be logically and arithmetically correct, plus it should be written with correct unit or currency. Say for example, if you have to write kg, then you must write kg, and the currency also must be mentioned correctly where it is an amount, say rupees, US dollars, GBP, Great British Pound, so whatever it is, students, so that you have to take care. Then another thing, that what is the relative importance of the final answer. So always remember, students, the final answer is very important and it will have a lion's share of total marks. Means the allocation to the final answer will be always highest, maximum. MCQs also same type of thing. Generally, you will come across MCQs of 2 marks. Sometimes concept-based MCQs, theory-based MCQs can be of 1 marks, but that will be occasional. And out of 4 alternatives, you have to select the right alternative and you will get the full marks, students. Inside the step, how you write, that is not very important, but by and large, you should follow the ICI method. Okay. Now, let's discuss some instructions related points. So here, if some question contains instructions, then what is the significance of those instructions? See, here also two things are there. The first, any instructions relating to rounding off must be strictly followed. Any instructions relating to rounding off. Okay. Then see, if the question has already given some values, say present value factors, or natural logarithm values, or say power of e, or some other values, say present value annuity factors, then you must use only those values in arriving at the final answer. If you arrive at your final answer based on your values as per your calculator, and if your final answer slightly differs, then you can lose some marks for that. So it is compulsory for the students to use the values given in the question, if any. Okay. And if the question is silent about present value factors or present value annuity factors, then generally you should take them up to 3 decimals. Thereafter, students, we will discuss some method related points. So here, the first thing, you must strictly follow ICI method and steps in general, particularly in repeat sums and ambiguous sums. Repeat sums are those questions which have been asked earlier in the exam and are now similar questions are repeating. So there your steps should be according to the ICI method. Then all working notes as per ICI solution you must prepare. There are marks for working notes in the stepwise marking scheme. Then students, uh, ambiguous sums. Ambiguous sums, around 10% of your questions in AFM happen to be ambiguous. In ambiguous questions, students, the solution is not logically consistent with the question, or sometimes the question itself is defective. So here the some important parts of the solution you will have to remember, because the general rule is that if the question is ambiguous, then you must write the ICI solution or similar to ICI solution in the exam. If you write the logically correct solution, then you may lose marks. However, very recently, in May 23, most probably, there was one question in interest rate derivatives chapter where the ICI broke away from this tradition and gave a correct solution, logically correct solution to an ambiguous question. So now students, there will be few cases, there will be some instances where it is preferable to write both solutions, past ICI ambiguous solution and then alternative solution. Then you have to write in the alternative solution the logically correct solution, students. So however, such instances will be very rare, so don't worry about them. I will let you know in our discussion during the regular batch. Then students, at any cost, always remember, never bluff. Never write wrong things. If you don't know, just skip, but never bluff. Then see, there are certain variables in finance, in AFM, say for example, rate of return or standard deviation of return, then variance, covariance, etc., where we calculate sometimes in decimal wise, but always remember, answers, final answers are always written in percentage form. And in most of the cases, percentage wise calculation is should be done. Say, for example, suppose from individual returns of securities, you have to calculate the portfolio return. Or from the individual risks of securities, the standard deviations of returns of securities, you have to calculate the portfolio returns standard deviation. Then always do the percentage wise calculation unless the question indicates or specifies otherwise. Remember, in any question, if there is a contrary indication relating to anything or any instruction, then it must be strictly followed. The common sense says that first of all, the most important thing is the instructions or indications given in the question. Thereafter, if the question is silent, then you should follow the presumptions which we are discussing here. And these presumptions we have gathered from the ICA study material and the past exam questions, students. And here we are discussing these presumptions only. Then many times the students have doubt about some how to calculate interest, means which things they have to keep in mind. So here basically two issues are there. First is that whether you should do day wise calculation or month wise calculation. interest calculation day wise or month wise, and then in calculating the period, which dates should be included and excluded. So here students, largely you have to follow common sense uh, on whether to do day wise calculation or month wise calculation. The rule is that if the question indicates something, say in the question has an indication that do day wise calculation or do month wise calculation, then do accordingly. And if the question is silent, then do month-wise calculation. Now, how will you come to know how the problem indicates, the question indicates? See, if in the question it is written that 1 year is equal to 360 days or 1 month is equal to 30 days, or if the question specifies some odd dates, say for example 5th January, or say for example in the original formula which you generally use, it is day wise, then generally the day wise calculation is done, students. And remember, for 1 year is equal to 360 days, you can take only if the question indicates that. If the question is silent, then take 365 days or 366 days for 1 year, as the case may be. Okay. And if the question, how will you know that the question indicates month-wise calculation? That the no dates are specific dates are specified in the question, or no specific months are specified. So only 3 months is specified, but say February, March, April is not specified. So in that case, students, you should do month-wise calculation. If the question is silent, then also you should do the month-wise calculation. And students, in some particular specific sums, there are some issues which also you may have to keep in mind. But those issues, it is better that we discuss them along with solving sums in our regular batch. So here we are discussing only general things which are applicable by and large to the whole paper. By and large to the whole paper. Okay. Then in calculating period, you have to follow the same rule which you have been following since your CA foundation. You know what is the general rule, that if you take a loan today and then repay, that if you or buy an asset and sell it, and if you have to calculate the period, for example, then we generally include the buy date and exclude the sell date, or include the date of borrowing and exclude the date of repayment. Okay. In case the repayment takes place in the next year, next financial year, then the closing date, the date of borrowing or date of buying and closing date, both are included. And if the loan is borrowed or if the asset is purchased in the last year, and there is no information about repayment, etc., students, then opening date to closing date, the full year, the whole period is included. Both dates are included. So this is commonsensical. Okay. Then in theory questions, students, the general rule is that always write ICA's main points. Main here, this it means the points which are there in ICA study material or suggested answers. In our question bank, we have written the same points and headings. Okay. Then write 2-3 lines as per your mind. As per ICI, according to your mind, 2-3 lines, but in your own words. So this should be according to, as per ICI, but in your own words. This will be enough, and you will get full marks. In theory questions are also quite scoring in AFM, students. Then about short forms, see the short forms which as per ICI are allowed. Say for example, IRR, internal rate of return, NPV, EPS, then NAV, they can be used. Even 3-letter ISO codes for currencies, say GBP, USD, CHF, JPY, you can use them, students, no problem. And other reasonable short forms can be used provided they are understandable. Say for example, for book value per share in mergers chapter, you can use BVPS, no issue. Okay. Don't avoid using some short forms which the examiner cannot understand. Then whether are there any marks for formula? So the general rule is that there are no marks for formula in general, uh, except in some rare cases, a binomial model for option valuation. When we calculate risk neutral probability, we generally write the formula and then we make the calculation. So these such cases are very rare. I will let you know such cases during our regular batch discussion. So otherwise you need not write formula, you need not memorize formula. You understand the formula properly and then you can directly calculate in the exam, students. Then there are a few things which can distinguish you from the crowd and you can leave a good impression in the mind of the examiner. So it can have some positive impact on your otherwise result, students. So here the first thing is amendments. See, always remember that if there are any amendments in the syllabus or in say DT or some law paper, there are some amendments, then the chances of questions coming relating to amendments is relatively higher in any exam. So always prepare thoroughly for these amendments, and if any question comes on that, do attempt that. So it will have a positive impact, students. And most of the crowd includes repeaters, around 80% of the students. So you can distinguish yourself from the crowd in this manner. And then students always remember, okay, whether to write sections or case study references or AS index, this may not be much relevant for AFM paper, but it is definitely relevant for your DT paper and law papers, DTI, DT and law. So here the rule is that if you wherever you know, do write these sections, but only write correct references, correct section numbers or correct index numbers. If you don't know, never write wrong one. If you write, it definitely has a good impact on the examiner. Okay, then some presentation related points, students. So always remember that it is not necessary to draw tables or draw lines. Never waste time in that. But do write in neat and clean form, and do write in tabular form wherever you are solving a practical question. So neat and clean solution with sufficient space in between is very important. Leaving sufficient space in between has some advantages. Say for example, if you want to make some corrections later on, then you can do it properly, or it gives also a good set get up to your solution, students. Okay, now finally some rules relating to rounding off. So here any instruction in the question is mandatory, and any intermediate number means that you calculate something but it is not the final answer, it is used in arriving at the final answer, then such intermediate numbers should be calculated up to 4 decimals generally. Okay. Then regarding the exchange rate, here there are some specific issues. So understand, in exchange rate, you have to go as per the question. See how the existing exchange rate is reported in the question. Take that many number of decimals. Otherwise, you should generally take for some currency, most currencies 4 decimals, and for other currencies 2 decimals. That we will discuss better in the forex chapter, students. Then exchange ratio in merger chapter, weights in portfolio management chapter, then Z score in calculating value at risk, and probability in portfolio management and derivatives chapter. So all this, here you look into the question. If the question already mentions existing values, then use that many number of decimals. And if the question is silent, then use 4 decimals. Okay. Then beta and duration. Beta for shares, that is in portfolio management, and duration in bond valuation. So generally, if it is used in other calculation, then use 4 decimals, and otherwise 3 to 4 decimals, students. Then number of units in mutual fund units or NAV, they are generally rounded off up to 2 decimals, and if used in other calculation, then 4 decimals. So students, the one general rule emerges that follow common sense by and large, and if the figure is used in some other calculation, then prefer to be precise up to 4 decimals. Okay. Then amounts, how you will write amounts. So here follow the denomination given in the problem. If the problem writes figures in rupees in thousands, amounts in thousands or lakhs or crores, then follow that. And figures in lakhs and crores are generally rounded off up to 2 decimals. Then large amounts are rounded off to the nearest rupee. You need not write paisa. Then small amounts like EPS and BBPS, book value per share, they are rounded off up to 2 decimal, students. Okay. Then last discussion, that is ICI errors in marking. Now see, ICI does make errors in marking. The ICI's examiners quite often, they don't happen to be proficient, and there have been many complaints. There remain many complaints about them. So on an average, we can expect 5% of your correct marks. Say, if you are otherwise getting, say, 70 marks, then uh, 3 to 4 marks error plus minus is possible always. Leave a room for this. So how will you hedge this risk? This is a systematic risk. Systematic means applicable. The risk is applicable to all students. All students. So it's a general systematic risk, system risk, and you should increase your target by 10% to hedge against this type of risk. To manage this type of risk, the best will be that if you want 70, then always prepare for 75 or so. Always prepare for 75 or 80 marks. And here in AFM paper, from time to time, in discussing different concepts and in solving sums, we will let you know what to do in at which particular place. Okay, students. So this way we have summarized the correct method of writing CA Final AFM paper. You can pause the video wherever necessary and note down these points if you need, or we may also put in our website in free resources section a digital copy of this chart. Okay, students. So thank you.